Just a quick note, our next webinar, Get Making the Switch Without Sacrificing Productivity, is scheduled for March 11th at 11 a.m. Central. As you have questions, please be sure to provide them via the questions utility in the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll queue them up and answer them towards the end of the session. So on the phone today from Precipio Consulting, we have Amanda Babb. Amanda is a Senior Solutions Architect with Precipio Consulting and will be presenting today's webinar. And my name is Shayla Sander. I'm a Business Development Manager at Precipio Consulting, and I'll be serving as your moderator. We've been Atlassian expert partners for over 6 years now and are one of 5 platinum enterprise experts in the country. Over 99% of our projects are Atlassian related, and we have hundreds of clients across the US, ranging in size from 20-person startups to Fortune 20 enterprises spanning many different industries. We help our clients with process-centric technology solutions that facilitate traditional business process management, IT service management based on ITIL, and software development life cycles. In the SDLC space, we're helping our clients transition from waterfall to agile. So whatever widgets you produce, we help improve the quality and throughput at the lowest cost. We support our clients in all facets of the Atlassian product suite and build methodologies and solutions across the entire line of products. This includes licensing, upgrades and maintenance, solutions, managed services, hosting, add-on development, and of course, training. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Amanda to take us through our webinar.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Shayla. Again, my name is Amanda Babb, and I'm a Senior Solutions Architect here at Precipio Consulting. I'm also a certified Scrum Master, and just a little fun fact about me, I am currently planning an October wedding using JIRA and Confluence because I have family on the West Coast and family on the East Coast, and I'm down here on the South Coast, so we want to make sure that we get everybody on the same page while planning our wedding. So a little bit about what we're going to cover today. In essence, what we're trying to do is give you a high-level overview of what Scaled Agile Frameworks for the Enterprise is. We're not here to make you experts, but we want to give you a good understanding of what it is and why it came to be. So we'll talk about an introduction to Scaled Agile Frameworks for the Enterprise, or also known as SAFe. We'll talk about some of the key terms and concepts within SAFe, and then we'll talk about how to use the Atlassian toolset to lock in SAFe at your organization. So if you've never seen a picture of this lovely gentleman before, this is Dean Leffingwell. He's actually one of the co-founders of Scaled Agile Frameworks for the Enterprise. And what SAFe is it's actually a public-facing knowledge base of proven best practices that bring the benefits of software agility to extremely large software enterprise. So what happened was he was driven to really start designing SAFe when he saw that Agile is really, really great at the team level. However, it's not necessarily as robust as you would think to actually scale to the enterprise level. So kind of what do we mean by that? And there's 2 traditional methodologies when we're talking about software development. And we talk about a waterfall versus Agile. So traditional waterfall project methodology usually relies on strict planning of all resources, complete documentation, and sort of one grand launch at the end of an effort. Whereas Agile teams, of course, focus on short sprints, and they consistently deliver potentially shippable product to check and adjust as necessary that those products that they wish to ship that they've been developing throughout the entire process. So when we talk about Agile, why is Agile so great? And the first piece is that it helps accelerate value delivery. You're able to get the product to market and add value that customers want. Agile typically makes money faster, right? So you're on the market faster, you have more time on the market, and that basically means the first on the market, the better the margins. It typically delivers better fit for purpose. So you're able to check and recheck what the customer thinks they want versus what they're getting and deliver a better product in the end. For those of you that attended the Confluence Questions webinar co-hosted with Atlassian last week, we talked about the concept of short feedback cycles equals lower cost of development, which then allows your developers to focus on things like new feature development as opposed to bug fixes and software maintenance. And then, of course, Agile helps reduce risk because you're constantly checking against the market as well as the product releases. Then you reduce the chance of missing the mark, whether that's a deadline or what the fit for purpose actually is supposed to be. So yeah, Amanda, you guys talk ad nauseum about Agile. I knew all this stuff already. We've been to all of your webinars. So why do we really need to know about SAFe? Well, the great thing about the PMO is they love waterfall, right? Because they love structured organization because it gives them a well-executed and repeatable process. Executives in an organization typically rely on the PMO to help carry forth the vision and the strategy of the organization. While the teams are working Agile, but the PMO may be trying to manage it via waterfall methodology, then that may tend to lead to conflicts between vision versus execution. So with Scaled Agile Frameworks, we have the ability to take our executive vision, wrap a little bit of the PMO structure around it, and still allow our developers to work in their Agile framework. So welcome to the Big Picture 3.0, and this was actually released from the Scaled Agile Frameworks online site, July 28th of 2014. And what it does is this actually helps provide the structure found in waterfall methodologies, but it's truly actually based on Agile principles. So at our first level, this should be what you're most familiar with. This is our team level. These are where we're having our teams work with their triumvirate of roles, your product owner, scrum masters, your teams themselves. They're working in short iterative sprints with goals that they're trying to hit for each of those sprints, right? They're making their commitments, they're doing those small releases, they're working off of a backlog. At the next level, you end up having a program level, right? And here is where you get a little bit more of your product management as opposed to just product ownership. This is also where release management comes in. So your product management helps with the vision and the roadmap, as well as things like program epics to ensure that the program is fulfilling what the vision of the executives are. You may or may not actually have full releases at the end of each sprint, or you may actually have releases at the program increment level. Typically, releases are features as well as architecture, and releases are made up of Agile release trains, which is actually a team of teams that can release on demand at any given time. Then up at your portfolio level, this is where we start bringing in our program and portfolio management folks. This is where we start talking about the overall strategic themes of the business. You have both not just feature as well as enterprise architects involved, working through the portfolio backlog. This is also where some budgets are starting to happen. And you'll see here that you actually start tying together several release trains to make sure that you're fulfilling what you need to fulfill in order to move the organization forward with its vision. So if we dig in a little bit more in depth into each section, the first piece is the team level, right? And so we've talked a lot about what Scrum is, and you have your triumvirate of roles, your Scrum Master, your Product Owner, and your Scrum team. Your folks are committing to what they're going to get done within a 2-week or 4-week iteration, and they're making that commitment to make sure that they have that potentially shippable increment. The important thing to remember is that because SAFe is based off of Agile frameworks, if you do not have good practices at the team level, then you will not be able to scale Agile. You have to follow the ritual of Scrum in order to help scale to the program and portfolio levels within Agile. So at the program level, we have a couple of key pieces, right? So at the program level, this is where you have several Agile teams working together. And they're working together to typically what's called an Agile release train. You also have a release train engineer, that's that little guy off to the right, purple, and he actually acts as, he or she, I should say, acts as the chief scrum master, right? So each of your teams has a scrum master. Now you have a single person who acts as the chief scrum master. You still have product owners that are responsible for grooming the backlog. You still have a backlog, but it's at the epic level, that you're making sure that it includes both business as well as architectural needs. And then, of course, you have your program increments. And program increments are usually comprised of about 5 sprints or 10 work weeks. And at the end of an Agile release train, you don't necessarily need to have a release, right? That's where release management decides to pick and choose what they can actually put out on the market as stable. Now we go up to the portfolio level, that third level, that highest level. And this is where initiatives are born with loose requirements. This is also typically where the spend plan of resources, whether it's people or budget or both, is generalized, allowing the program level to allocate those resources based on real-time needs. Kanban is used to help keep a constant flow of work to the programs themselves. And because every train needs a runway, architecture resource planning is extremely important and is just as important as the code itself. Your metrics at your portfolio level must be reflective of Agile best practices. So you're tracking things like your velocity, your defect creation versus resolution. You're looking at QA metrics in terms of things like percent test plans, percent test plan automation, etc. So now let's actually dig a little bit deeper into some of those key terms that I've been using as we've been describing what SAFe is. Strategic themes. So these are your big overall business themes. This would be something like, we want to go after globalization in 2015, or we want to go for performance or something like that. These are these huge high-level business concepts that we're trying to attack over a period of time. The Agile release train, right? So this is our team of teams that are executing at the program level, and they're really that program level value delivery system. Because it's a team of teams, you're talking anywhere from 50 to 125 people that you could be trying to keep in sync at any given time. So again, it's really important to make sure that you have very good team foundations within Agile before you can scale to just even a single Agile release train. You have your release train engineer. Again, this person is the chief scrum master. So they're responsible for removing impediments at the program level, not necessarily at the team level. Your program increment. Again, this is our cadence-based interval, and essentially a program increment is typically equal to 5 sprints. A release may or may not happen at the end of a program increment. So very important for you guys to remember, especially when you're looking at release management. Your program backlog, so this is your definitive repository for absolutely everything that's coming up for work to help advance that Agile release train solution. And then weighted shortest job first. This is actually a method of prioritization within SAFe that factors in the cost of delivery and the time to produce. So those things that have the highest business demand or business value with the lowest time to deliver end up being the priority within the backlogs. So let's talk about a couple of key concepts then. And when we talk about key concepts, what we're really truly talking about is the core values that SAFe embodies. Program execution. So in order to execute any program successfully, there needs to be a very clear set of guidelines which are followed by everybody to ensure quality at the highest level. All levels of the organization have to be working towards the same goals. So here we talk about alignment. The message has to be clear from the bottom to the top. This one I can't even emphasize enough. Code quality In order to scale Agile, your code has to be sound. Because you have so many teams working together within the same code base at the same time, no single person or team can have the "we'll fix it later" mentality. A single bad apple will truly spoil the whole bunch. And then the last piece is transparency, which Dean Leffingwell also refers to as trust. Everybody needs to understand what the path ahead is and understands that there is no one person or team that is more important than another. So you have to break down any sort of silos or knowledge hoarders within your organization in order to succeed with scaled agile frameworks for the enterprise. So now let's talk a little bit about the tools that we have available to us within the Atlassian toolset to help lock in scaled agile frameworks for the enterprise at your organization. So of course, because we're based on a foundation of Agile, right? JIRA Agile is your go-to product for this, right? Teams are going to work together to size their stories, and you're very easily able to input estimates in JIRA Agile, as well as look at your overall planning for your next sprint or series of sprints. You can use the plan mode to help groom your backlogs and, like I said, help plan out your sprints based on your team's velocity. Work your issues through simple workflows and allow your teams to focus on the work and not necessarily transitioning issues. So I can't emphasize this enough. A Scrum board will work with 17 statuses, but if you can make it to do in progress and done, your teams will be a lot more happy. Use your reporting available within JIRA Agile to determine the effectiveness of the Scrum, and always look for ways to improve. So make sure you're using your retrospectives as well as the velocity reports and some of those additional reports that are available to you. And then the last piece is make sure that you leverage Kanban boards. Why? Because typically initiatives are going to be tracked through their own workflow, because they may actually have a life cycle that they go through before they're ever decided upon something that the organization is going to go ahead and develop against. Of course, Confluence. We all love Confluence just as much as we love JIRA. So some key points here is make sure that you're setting up spaces to look the same across the enterprise so that any person can jump in and find the information they're looking for, right? So be consistent in your spaces. Use your templates and blueprints to standardize your forms, right? You want to make sure that, again, the information looks the same across the enterprise. You can use a lot of different macros, but one key macro that we would suggest that you use would be excerpt and include excerpt. And the reason we do that is that you can take a single document as your single source of truth for an initiative or for even a roadmap to then basically perpetuate that information across the rest of the instance. And then, of course, knowledge bases. Build out a knowledge base that's easy to search as well as very easy for your folks to contribute to. This helps take some of that tribal knowledge and those silos across the organizations. It helps break those down and put it in a single place in a knowledge base within Confluence. And of course, the newest addition to the Atlassian toolset, JIRA Portfolio. So what's great about Portfolio is that you're able to do things like plan your initiatives, your epics, your stories, everything like that without ever committing them to JIRA. So you can play the what if scenarios as much as you'd like before ever actually creating tasking. Use your themes, right? Your overall big business themes like globalization or performance or upgrades or something like that to tag your epics and stories. This will help make sure that the enterprise is focusing resources in the right areas. Depending on the size of your enterprise or organization, Agile release trains can actually be represented either by release streams or they can be represented in separate portfolios. It's really flexible enough for you to choose how you'd like to portray those items. And then, of course, because Portfolio is a JIRA product, you're able to track your progress of the plan by linking issues back and forth over multiple JIRA projects. So with that being said, we're just going to go into a little bit of a brief demonstration of how those three tools can work together to help lock in Scaled Agile frameworks for the enterprise at your organization. So the first piece that we can talk about is, of course, Confluence, right? And why do we say Confluence? Well, Confluence is an extremely powerful ideation engine and collaboration platform. Everybody always does it a disservice when they call it a wiki, right? So for example, an executive team or the portfolio and project managers can come together and start creating a series of pages over those big business themes that they're looking for. So for example, these 4 pages, exploration, new features, performance, and upgrades, would be what are considered those big strategic themes that the organization is going after. Under each of these strategic themes, they can actually do things like talk about what mission statements are, maybe what the overall initiatives are for this particular mission statement for this particular strategic theme. They can even go further and further and actually create additional pages for things like, here's our rough budget for this particular piece. Here's our overall project diary for what we're thinking about for this overall business theme. So there's a lot of flexibility within Confluence to allow program and product managers to come together to actually start developing what they think their next steps are within Confluence, right? Of course, the fun part also as well is based on the content that you have in there. By simply selecting or highlighting a piece or chunk of text, they can even create their issues right away and then pull them into Portfolio, or they can simply leave them as thoughts before they actually start to work in Portfolio. So once we actually start fleshing those items out in terms of what our initiatives are, etc., now we have the ability to say, okay, let's start working on our epics. And then even under our epics, let's go ahead and start putting together some rough estimates around our stories. We can designate the teams that may or may not be working on an individual epic or story level. We can actually look at our releases in terms of release trains, right? We can do dynamic scheduling within Portfolio, or we could do fixed scheduling in order to see if we even have a chance or a hope in making what we expect our releases to be, right? We can use this dynamic scheduling as well to give us a suggestion as to how our teams would be operating within each of those sprints, right? And those can be designated based on the separate teams. We can very quickly and easily link these over into a single project or multiple projects within JIRA, right? So again, even before we start putting information in JIRA, we can play all of our what if scenarios to say then, yes, this is great, we're going to go ahead and do this. And by creating and linking issues, essentially what we're doing is we're pushing our information into JIRA. So for example, if I click on this new issue link that takes us to this particular epic, it's relating to this particular initiative that has these stories down below, right? Now, because I am running this on a single project and not multiple projects, it's very easy for a single board to actually manage all of these items. So for example, where we had seen that we had created the story and our epic, that's what this guy is down here, lots of epics in this particular board. So because we have our story and our epic, now we're able to actually take our backlog. Now remember, this can be done for an individual team, or this can actually be done in a Scrum board that is based off of a filter to help with your overall Agile release train. So I can groom my backlog. I can set what my estimate is. And I can then actually, if I'd like to, pull those items into or out of our sprint and very quickly and easily start the sprint for an individual team. Or, like I said, you can actually use these boards to manage multiple teams. Also within JIRA Agile, we have our initiatives that run through their own separate Kanban board. So here we've got our 2 initiatives that are currently running, one of which is in progress, one of which is in to do. And we can add as many initiatives here as we'd like. And again, if we'd like to add additional initiatives and pull this information into JIRA Portfolio to track additional initiatives, we're very much able to do that. So for example, if I wanted to go ahead and create another new initiative here, and we'll just give it a quick name. And we'll create this. Here's new initiative 1. If I go back to my portfolio, oops. If I go back to my portfolio, here we go. I can actually then go and find that particular initiative, JW115, our new initiative. I'm importing it as that initiative. And because I have this set up to sync, then as the initiative is being worked, I will see things like the progress of the initiative as well as the epics and the stories down below it. Here's our new initiative 1. And then from here, I can also create, again, additional epics and stories without pushing them back into JIRA. So there's a lot of flexibility that you have, and what my suggestion to all of you on the phone is that as you're getting ready to scale Agile, first go out and read Scaling Software Agility. It was one of the first original books written by Dean Leffingwell. I can tell you that not only does it give you the great foundations of different types of Agile frameworks, but it also then tells you how to scale. The other piece is, do not be scared of doing something a little bit different with the products that you may have been using for a long time. When it comes to how you're thinking about laying out Confluence, when it comes to creating new templates and blueprints, when it comes to how you guys are going to work together as an organization, again, core value transparency, don't be scared and allow people to get in there and collaborate on how they'd like to work within those frameworks. The other piece is that, like I said, individual teams can work in individual boards, but as well, because with JIRA Agile, you're able to create boards based off of filters, right? You can actually manage multiple projects within a single board, multiple JIRA projects and teams within a single board. Now, there is going to have to be a little bit of a growing pain there just so that you can actually make sure that you manage the right data within your JIRA issues in order to create the correct board, right? The other piece is that, again, with boards, make sure that you're tracking your initiatives through some other piece. Now, they can be tracked within the same project, or they can be tracked within their own project, again, because typically initiatives have some sort of front-end life cycle. This to-do piece is basically, at this point, these are determined as initiatives that the organization are going to go after and start breaking down and developing against. So don't be afraid to have an additional project within JIRA just for initiatives in and of themselves. And then the last piece is, of course, with JIRA Portfolio. JIRA Portfolio can get extremely complicated very quickly. So with Portfolio, start small, okay? Start with maybe a single plan with maybe a team or two teams to start, and play some what if scenarios, right? Make yourself a test plan or a proof of concept plan, maybe with a current initiative that you guys are actually going after before you get to something like this level. Because again, you can get very complicated very quickly, and you can play a lot of what if scenarios before you ever get to the point that you feel like you're ready to push information into JIRA. Or if you want to see what your what if scenarios are currently, of course, you can always pull information into a portfolio from JIRA. So with that, that pretty much concludes the demonstration section of our webinar. I guess at this point, we're ready to take on our questions. Do we have some questions queued up, Shayla?
Great. Yeah, we do. Thanks, Amanda. So the first question, does Portfolio come built in with your JIRA instance? I can actually answer that when I help with a lot of the licensing efforts here at Precipio Consulting. So no, it doesn't. It is a separate purchase, but it is a plugin that sits on top of your JIRA instance. So next question is the hierarchy Portfolio and then projects into epics, into initiatives, and then into stories?
In Portfolio, it's more themes, initiatives, epics, stories, with a whole bunch of a twist of teams and releases mixed into that. So your theme is your highest level. Those would be like at your portfolio level within Scaled Agile Frameworks for the enterprise. Your programs, those are going to be more like your releases and your initiatives. And then, of course, your epics and stories can work. Your epics can work actually both at the program and the team level, but your stories are definitely 100% team level.
Okay, thanks. Another question. Are there any good resources on how to best customize JIRA issue types to meet the needs of an agile team, like customized fields and workflows?
Well, of course, you should reach out to your local friendly expert to help you with that. There's also a lot of really good information out there on Atlassian Answers. You know, folks have said, okay, how do I best manage, process A? And so folks will go out there and help on that. Also, there's some information out there on LinkedIn. But again, if you're, struggling, or maybe you just don't feel like you have the best resources to help with that, like I said, please feel free to reach out to us. This is what we do. We live and breathe in this, and so we can help you streamline your processes as well as work with your data models to make sure that you're getting all the right points in the right places.
Great, thanks. Next question. Can JIRA Portfolio be used with a waterfall type methodology of projects?
Absolutely, 100% it can. And actually, I'm going to show you a quick example of that. Oops, that was the wrong button for me to hit. There we go. Within Portfolio, we actually have, in our instance, we actually have a couple of examples of waterfall portfolios. And the way that you manage them instead is you set dependencies, and you also look at your releases as being your overall parts of your streams, your release streams, in order to manage waterfall. So for example, here under the release stream of my dashboard project, you've got planning, execution, implementation, and closing, which have fixed dates as to when they need to be due, right? Portfolio is very much framework agnostic. When you first create a portfolio, You have the opportunity to make some choices, which it says, do you want to do Scrum or Kanban or mixed methodology or traditional? But really the thing is that the only piece that this changes are the skills and stages of the teams, not the overall layout of how you're going to do your work, right? It's just skills and stages of the teams. And of course, if y'all really do sort of an agile fall methodology or something, that's kind of a really big mix of stuff, you can always go with blank and create it however you'd like to.
Great, thanks. So it looks like that's it for questions. I'm going to go ahead and take this time to thank everybody for joining us for our webinar today. Just a quick note, our next webinar is going to be March 11th at 11 a.m. Central with Christopher Pepe. Get making the switch without sacrificing productivity. If you want to go ahead and get a hold of us, you can do so by reaching out to us at contact@precipio.com. But thank you very much for attending and hope you have a great day. Take care.